The doctor said I had 3 days left to live, but that wasn't the part that broke me. The part that did was my husband's smile. 42 years of marriage, and when he thought I had fallen asleep, he leaned closer and whispered one word. Finally. That was the moment I realized something. I might only have 3 days left to live, but 3 days is more than enough to destroy his life. I'm lying in this hospital bed, 74 years old, when the doctor delivers the sentence that makes the whole room go still. 3 days, give or take. I don't look at him. I look at my husband, Arthur Bennett, the man who has been by my side for 42 years. And then he smiles, a small, quiet smile, almost relieved. He leans down, assuming I've already drifted off, and whispers so softly I almost miss it. Finally. In that single heartbeat, everything I thought I knew about the last 4 decades collapses. The man I loved for 42 years has been waiting for this moment far longer than I ever imagined. Arthur steps out of the room to call his lawyer. My eyes snap open. I don't cry. Instead, I reach for my phone with the little strength I have left and dial the only person I still trust completely. Maria. I need your help. Maria, my housekeeper, my confidant, has been in our home for 30 years. He thinks I'll be gone in 3 days, I tell her, voice steady. I pause just long enough to draw a breath. So, we have 3 days to ruin him. Maria slips back into the villa while Arthur is still out. She knows exactly where to look. Under the old 4-poster bed in the master bedroom. Behind the dusty valance, there's a plain wooden box I've kept hidden for years. She pulls it out, opens the lid, and I can almost hear her sharp intake of breath, even though I'm not there. Inside are the pieces I've collected in silence. Photographs I was never meant to find, printed emails, some dating back 15 years, hotel and restaurant receipts that never appeared on our joint accounts. A small digital recorder with conversations I recorded when I first began to suspect bank statements showing transfers to accounts with names I didn't recognize. Proof, cold and undeniable, that Arthur Bennett has been methodically planning to take everything I own, everything my family built before I ever met him, for a very long time. Maria's voice trembles over the phone when she calls me back. My God, Rose! I don't flinch. I only say, quietly, this is just the beginning. Back in the hospital room, with the monitors beeping softly around me, I let myself remember. The day we met, Arthur was the most charming man I had ever seen. Tall, quick with a smile, eyes that seemed to promise the world. I was 32 and believed in happy endings. Over the decades, the warmth faded. Love slowly curdled into indifference. Indifference hardened into quiet contempt. By the time I turned 50, I no longer laughed at his jokes. By 60, I stopped dreaming of trips we'd never take, of a retirement we'd never share. By 70, I stopped fighting back. I learned to move through the house like a ghost, to keep my mouth shut, to let him believe I was already half gone. Until 3 days ago, because for the first time in 42 years, I finally saw his real face when he smiled at the news of my death and whispered, finally. And now, I'm not going anywhere quietly. A few hours later, Dr. Evans comes back into my room. His face is pale, almost gray, and he closes the door behind him with a careful click, the way people do when they're about to deliver bad, or in this case, very complicated news. Mrs. Bennett, he starts, voice low, I have to tell you something. He explains it quickly, like he's ripping off a bandage. The test results were mixed up, swapped with another patient's file. There is no terminal diagnosis, no 3 days, no countdown. I could live for years, many years. I look at him for a long moment. Then I smile. Slowly. The first real smile I've allowed myself in this room. Don't tell my husband, I say. He blinks, startled. Give me 24 hours. He hesitates, then nods once, understanding something he doesn't fully want to understand. He leaves without another word. While Arthur still believes I'm slipping away, he starts moving. Maria stays in the house, silent as a shadow, phone recording whenever he's on a call or muttering to himself. I listen to everything she sends me later, piece by piece, from this hospital bed. He calls his lawyer, twice, confirming dates, wording, how quickly the will can be probated if there's no contest. He transfers money. Not huge amounts at first, just enough to test whether anyone's watching. Then larger sums slide into accounts I've never seen before. He lists 2 properties for private sale. My mother's lake house, the cabin we used to escape to in the Adirondacks, both in my name originally, both quietly being prepared to disappear. And then there's the call to Sylvia. I hear her voice through the speaker, soft and impatient, the way a woman sounds when she's been promised something for a long time. Just a few more days, Arthur tells her, almost tender. Then everything will be ours. Maria sends me the audio file right after. I play it twice. When it ends, I don't cry. I don't scream. I only say very quietly to the empty room, he just convicted himself. Maria texts me late that afternoon while Arthur is out meeting his lawyer again. She's in his study, his private sanctuary, the one room in the house I've rarely been allowed to enter for the last decade. She says she found something tucked behind a row of old law books on the bottom shelf. A small leather-bound notebook, no bigger than a paperback, suit the kind people use for secrets they don't trust to computers. She opens it and starts reading entries aloud to me over a secure call. Her voice shakes as she goes. Page after page, in Arthur's neat, deliberate handwriting, is a timeline that stretches back almost 20 years. Dates he first opened secret accounts in offshore banks. Notes on how to gradually isolate me from my old friends and advisors. A step-by-step guide to having me declared mentally incompetent. Which doctors to consult. What symptoms to exaggerate. Which forms to file quietly with the court. A list of assets, properties, investments, even my mother's jewelry collection, and exactly how to transfer each one into his name or into trusts he controls the moment I'm gone. Reminders to himself, be patient. She must go first. Why, no mistakes. It isn't just greed scrawled in those pages. It's a blueprint, a long, cold, meticulous plan for the day of my death. One he's been refining, updating, waiting for, year after year. Maria stops reading at one point. I can hear her breathing hard. Rose. He's been doing this since you were in your 50s. I don't answer right away. I let the silence sit between us while the hospital monitors beep in the background. Then I say, very calmly, photograph every page, every single one, and bring the notebook to me tonight. Because the man who spent 4 decades pretending to love me didn't just want me gone. He wanted to erase me completely, and he thought he had all the time in the world to do it. He was wrong. Arthur arrives at the hospital in the late afternoon, carrying a slim leather folder like it's nothing more than routine paperwork. He sits beside my bed, his face arranged into the perfect mask of concern. Furrowed brow, gentle voice, the same performance he's given for years. Rose, darling, he says, opening the folder with practiced care. The hospital needs you to sign a few things. Just standard forms, so everything's taken care of. He slides the top sheet toward me, pen already in hand. I glance down. It looks official enough. Hospital letterhead, dense paragraphs. But I know better. Buried in the legalese are powers of attorney, asset transfer authorizations, documents that would quietly hand him control of every account, every property, every last cent the moment I pass. I don't argue. I don't accuse. I only let my hand tremble as I reach for the pen, breathing shallow and slow like someone already halfway gone. My fingers shake so badly, the pen scratches across the page in weak, uneven strokes. He watches every movement, eyes bright with something close to triumph. When I finish, he gathers the papers quickly, pats my hand once, like an afterthought, and stands. "I'll take care of the rest," he murmurs. "You rest now." He leaves the room. The second the door clicks shut, Dr. Evans slips in from the side corridor. Two nurses follow. They help me out of the bed, gently, quickly, and wheel me down the hall to a private room on another floor. One Arthur doesn't know exists. My chart is already being updated under a temporary alias. No record of the transfer. No trace I was ever moved. Back in my old room, the cameras, high in the corners, the ones meant for patient safety, keep rolling. Arthur returns less than 10 minutes later. He thinks the room is empty now, thinks I'm too weak to notice anything. He sits at the small table by the window, spreads the unsigned copies in front of him, and begins to forge my signature. Stroke by careful stroke. He's practiced this. I can tell from the confidence in his hand. He signs once, twice, a third time on the final page. Every motion is captured in crisp, silent detail. When he's done, he slips the papers back into the folder, exhales like a man who's finally crossed the finish line, and walks out. He has no idea the trap has already snapped shut around him. And I, safe in the new room, heart steady for the first time in days, watch the live feed Maria patched through to my phone. I don't smile, I wait. Because 3 days was never my deadline. It was always his. That night, after the hospital corridors have gone quiet and the night shift has settled in, I slip out. Dr. Evans arranges it himself, plain clothes instead of a hospital gown, a side exit no one watches, a car waiting in the shadows with tinted windows. No one asks questions. I'm not dying anymore, and he knows exactly why I need to move fast. I meet my lawyer, Mr. Hargrove, at his office downtown. The building is dark except for the single lamp burning in his corner suite. He's been my family's attorney since before Arthur ever walked into my life. He doesn't blink when I walk in looking pale, but very much alive. We don't waste time on greetings. I tell him everything: the forged signatures, the secret accounts, the notebook Maria photographed page by page, the recordings, the call to Sylvia. I hand him the folder of evidence we've compiled so far. Then I say the words I've rehearsed in my head for hours. Revoke the old will, all of it. I want a new one drawn up tonight. He nods, already pulling the template from his secure drive. We work quickly. I sit across from him. Pen steady now. No more trembling for show. The new will is simple and ironclad. Everything, every property, every investment, every account, every piece of jewelry that belonged to my mother and grandmother, goes to my granddaughter, Lily, the only light Arthur ever tried to dim because she reminded him too much of me when I was young and unafraid. Maria, who has been more family to me in 30 years than Arthur ever was in 42. She gets enough to live comfortably for the rest of her life, and the house she's cleaned and loved as if it were her own. Arthur Bennett? Not 1 cent, not 1 share. Not even the satisfaction of thinking he outlived me long enough to claim what was never truly his. I sign each page with a firm hand. Mr. Hargrove witnesses it, stamps it, seals it in an envelope he'll file first thing tomorrow, before Arthur can even suspect I'm still breathing. When it's done, I lean back in the chair and let out a long, slow breath. For the first time in decades, I feel the weight lifting. Not because I'm rich, because I'm finally free. And Arthur has no idea the game he thought he'd already won just ended, without him ever touching the prize. The next morning, just after dawn, Dr. Evans makes the call I've been waiting for. He dials Arthur from the hospital line, voice heavy with the practiced solemnity doctors reserve for these moments. "Mr. Bennett, I'm very sorry to inform you that your wife passed away peacefully a short while ago." There's a pause on the other end. A few long seconds of silence. Then Arthur exhales, a soft, almost inaudible sound, like a weight finally dropping from his shoulders. "Thank you, doctor," he says. Calm, polite. Not a trace of tremor in his voice. No tears, no choked sob, no questions about how it happened or whether I suffered. Just relief. Pure, unmistakable relief. He hangs up without another word. From the private room where I've been hidden since last night, I listen to the entire exchange through the speakerphone Maria has patched in. She's still at the house, monitoring everything, ready to record whatever comes next. I picture Arthur in our living room right now, maybe standing by the window, high staring out at the garden we used to walk in together. I imagine the slow smile creeping across his face, the one he tried to hide in my hospital room when the original diagnosis was delivered, the one that says, "At last, it's over. At last, everything is his." He thinks the fortune is finally unlocked. The properties, the accounts, the life he's been quietly reshaping for decades. All of it within reach now that I'm gone. He has no idea I'm sitting here, alive, breathing steadily, listening to the sound of his victory. And he has no idea how completely wrong he is. Because the man who spent 42 years waiting for my death just stepped into the trap I set for him. And I'm not finished yet. 1 hour after the hospital officially pronounced me dead, they make the second call. "Mr. Bennett?" "There's been an issue with the paperwork," the administrator says, voice clipped and professional. "We need you to come back immediately to clarify a few things before we can release the body." Arthur doesn't hesitate. He drives straight over, probably already mentally tallying the funeral costs he won't have to pay, the inheritance he's about to claim. I can picture the smug set of his shoulders as he walks through the corridors he thought he'd never have to see again. He pushes open the door to what used to be my room. And he freezes. I'm sitting up in the bed, propped against pillows, wearing a simple hospital robe instead of the shroud he expected. No tubes, no monitors beeping their countdown. Just me, alive, alert, and staring straight at him. His face drains of color so fast, I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. Surprised. Arthur?" I ask, my voice steady, stronger than it's been in years. He can't speak. His mouth opens, closes, opens again. Nothing comes out. That's when Maria steps forward from the corner of the room. She's been waiting here with me, silent until this moment. Without a word, she picks up the remote and turns on the television mounted on the wall. The screen lights up. First comes the security footage, crystal clear, time-stamped, from the room where he thought I was already gone. Arthur at the small table, pen in hand, carefully forging my signature on page after page. The camera catches every deliberate stroke, every glance toward the door to make sure no one was coming. Next, the audio plays. His voice, tender and conspiratorial. "See on the phone with Sylvia. Just a few more days. Then everything will be ours." Then the scanned pages from the notebook. His own handwriting, enlarged so every damning detail is impossible to miss. The decades-long plan, the isolation tactics, the fake incompetence filings, the offshore transfers, the reminder to himself, be patient, she must go first. The room fills with the quiet, relentless evidence of 42 years of betrayal. Arthur's knees buckle slightly. He grabs the foot of the bed to steady himself, eyes darting between the screen and me, as if he might still find a way to explain this away. He doesn't get the chance. The door opens again. 2 uniformed officers step inside, followed by a detective in plain clothes. The detective holds up a warrant folder, calm and matter-of-fact. "Arthur Bennett," he says, "you're under arrest for attempted fraud, forgery, conspiracy to commit fraud, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. You have the right to remain silent." I don't look away from Arthur's face as the cuffs click around his wrists. There are no tears in my eyes, no triumphant speech, just the quiet satisfaction of watching the mask finally fall completely. He thought I was dead. He thought he'd won. Instead, I came back, and I brought the truth with me. They arrested Arthur right there in the hospital room. The cuffs clicked around his wrists while the detective read the charges in a flat, unhurried voice. Forgery of signatures, conspiracy to defraud, financial exploitation, attempted grand theft by false pretenses. The list went on. They told him he could be looking at up to 10 years behind bars. Maybe more if the prosecutors decided to stack the counts. Arthur didn't protest. He didn't beg. He just stared at me, wide-eyed, mouth half open, like he still couldn't believe the dead woman was the one who had orchestrated his downfall. I didn't say anything to him. There was nothing left to say. 3 days later, I walked out of the hospital under my own power. No wheelchair, no IV stand trailing behind me. Just me, in street clothes Maria had brought, stepping into sunlight that felt sharper and warmer than it had in years. The paperwork was done. The new will was filed and ironclad. The evidence against Arthur was already in the hands of the district attorney, backed by video, audio, documents, and witnesses who had finally chosen to speak. I paused on the wide stone steps outside the main entrance. Maria was beside me, holding my arm, not because I needed it, but because after 30 years she still couldn't quite believe I was standing there, breathing free air. I looked at her, really looked at her, the lines around her eyes from years of quiet loyalty, the small, hopeful smile she was trying to hide, and I smiled back. A real one, the kind I hadn't worn since I was young. "It seems," I said softly, "those 3 days weren't meant for me to die." I took a slow breath, letting the breeze carry away the last traces of antiseptic and betrayal. They were meant for me to come back to life. And for the first time in decades, I believed it.